Ever get that feeling? Like you want to really get to the core of something,
Yeah.
get the main points, but also see different angles without getting totally overwhelmed.
Right. Not just skimming the surface, but really understanding.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we're doing today, deep dive time. This time, we're looking at Bob Camblin, an artist,
Yeah.
a thinker. Wow, the guy worked across so many years, so many different ways of creating.
Yeah. Prolific.
Totally. And we've got like a whole treasure chest of sources to dig into, some YouTube folks analyzing his art. Then we've got a bunch of Camblin's own words, his quotes and thoughts. Plus, there's a biography that lays out his life, some historical background to give us context, and even what critics and other people said about his work.
We've got it all. The mission here isn't just to, admire pretty pictures. We want to get to the heart of what Camblin was seeing, what ideas he was grappling with in his art. We're going to be connecting this stuff to some pretty big ideas, too. Zen, that stillness thing, the I Ching, ancient wisdom, even existentialism, that whole what's the meaning of it all thing. By the end of this, I hope it gets you thinking about your own life, too.
That's the goal. So many different types of sources. We've got other people interpreting his art. We can hear Camblin straight from the source. And then there's the whole big picture of his life and how people reacted to his work.
So, where do we even start?
Right. Well, let's start with that YouTube deep dive into one specific artwork. The guy doing the commentary was really focused on this one image. A hunched-over figure, almost skeletal looking.
Yeah, that one grabs you right away. What's interesting is how he links it to that play, Waiting for Godot. That whole waiting for something that might never come.
Right, right.
But then he throws this other idea out there. What if the figure isn't waiting at all? What if it's just meing? Fully existing in that moment makes you think about how we're always striving, always wanting something, and maybe we miss out on just being.
That is so true. And it takes us straight to that Zen idea of shikantaza, just sitting, no goal, just pure presence.
Right there in the moment.
And Camblin's figure is super still. You don't really see emotions on it. But is that emptiness? Or is it letting go? It really makes you wonder if we're so busy thinking about what's next that we forget how powerful just being here can be.
It's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And then the commentator goes and connects this to hexagram 52 from the I Ching. That's Zhen, the mountain. Some folks might not know the I Ching is this ancient Chinese book. It uses these symbols called hexagrams to give you insights into life's situations.
Oh, cool.
Think of the mountain as representing total inner peace. You're solid, nothing can shake you. And it throws up this huge question. Is Camblin's figure stuck waiting, or has it gone beyond that? Has it become the mountain itself, steady and strong?
I like that. It flips the whole image, doesn't it? Instead of waiting being a bad thing, it's powerful. And then the YouTube guy brings in this quote from the Tao Te Ching. It's by Lao Tzu. It says, "Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself?"
Which, if you think about it, fits so well with what seems to be at the heart of Camblin's whole philosophy. Surrender. Not forcing things, just letting them unfold naturally through being still.
It's hard though, right? Letting go of control.
In our world, for sure. Everything's go, go, go. But the Tao Te Ching calls this way of being effortless. It's the way.
It's almost radical to think that trying so hard can be the thing blocking us.
Right.
Then the YouTube analysis brings in dukkha, that existential idea of unease. Camblin's figure definitely seems detached from things, but it makes you ask, is he choosing that? Is that freedom from wanting and suffering? Or is it giving up, like saying nothing matters?
Big difference. Is it letting go on purpose, being cool with things changing, or is it giving in to the idea that there's no meaning? The commentator talks about the illusion of external salvation. Are we always looking for meaning outside ourselves, always waiting for something to save us, like those Godot guys?
Maybe if we looked inward, we'd find something different. So much to unpack in just one artwork. But we've also got Camblin's own words. Right off the bat, in that collection of his quotes, the very first one hits hard. He says, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps." Talk about a reality check.
No kidding. And right away, it sets up this theme that runs through all of his work and thinking nothing stays the same. Even things we think are permanent, they change, they fade. It's like he's reminding us not to cling too tightly to anything.
Yeah. And then you get these glimpses into how his mind worked. He's got this one where he says, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both. It's like he saw a connection between everything, from science to the supernatural.
He was big on common sense, on the perfectly average, being the key to understanding what's amazing in both the logical world and the mystical world. He even talks about a bright gray, where science and magic meet. It's like he wanted to connect all these different areas of knowledge, which is pretty cool if you're someone who's interested in a lot of different things like our listeners.
It's making connections where you wouldn't expect them. He also brings in this idea of senza dubio, which means without a doubt. He calls it a sixth sense. And what's interesting is that the book's intro ties this directly to intuition, that gut feeling. And remember how we talked about intuition being so important in Zen and the I Ching?
It's like he's saying there's this deeper way of knowing that goes beyond logic. But then in other quotes, you sense this tension in him. He says, "Bright day and I soar, how cruel that my soul is attached to this earth, and yet you can feel this yearning, being drawn to something bigger while still being bound to the physical world."
So human, right? We're all trying to reach for something more, but we're still stuck here.
Exactly. And then he gives this advice: find something in nature that completes you, and then surrender. Such a strong image. Connect deeply with nature, then let go, trust in something larger than yourself.
Beautiful. He keeps coming back to that idea of surrender, of going with the flow. He talks about light being the essential thing, about personal growth, needing dedication and work, and about believing in what you do.
Yeah.
It's like a mini guide to life, all in a few sentences.
Really is. And then he connects all these different things that you wouldn't think go together: balance, patience, freedom, silence. He says they're all part of staying grounded and moving away from suffering, like a recipe for inner peace.
It's like finding that balance amidst the chaos. What I also find interesting is how he sees art changing. It's not just art for art's sake anymore. He talks about art for life's sake, even art for survival's sake. So art isn't this separate thing. It's woven into being human, into our needs and experiences.
For sure. And then you get these sayings that are almost like riddles. Step off the train of thought, to find the power that is no power, to do the work that is not work, to laugh the true laugh, bending is not bowing. So much depth packed into a few lines.
It makes you stop and think, that's for sure.
Stepping off the train of thought, that's straight from Zen. It's about going beyond the limits of the thinking mind, finding a different kind of power, the power of not trying so hard, of just being present. And bending is not bowing. It's about being flexible, but not compromising who you are.
Yeah, I get that. And then he gives us this really striking image as lightning, the mind ripped out and flashes of variations to reach the still pond.
Wow.
It brings us back to that stillness idea, right? It's like all these sudden insights bursting forth and finding their way to a place of calm.
It's that aha moment after your mind's been going a mile a minute. Then there's this advice that seems contradictory.
Yeah.
When you think, don't act. When you act, don't think. But it makes sense in a way.
How so?
It's about moving beyond overthinking and just doing, trusting your gut in the moment.
Like, stop analyzing and just go for it. He's got another quote about talking about changing the world and then needing to pay for coffee. Brings it right back down to earth, doesn't it?
Makes it real.
He's also incredibly tuned in to the world around him. He says, "The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves. Sun-heated air moves across the electrons of my skin. Sunlight reflects those greens. First, white, then yellow-green, and in deep shadows, blue." It's like he's hyper-aware of every sensation.
You can feel it. And then there's this little story he creates around the tower. White mountains, cold wind, lightning. Then he leaves before the show is over. Like, he's accepting that things don't always have a neat ending.
Yeah, embracing the unfinished.
Yeah.
And he makes these little observations that are like haikus. Not a leaf moves, and yet we all feel the cool breeze. It's the little things, the stuff we usually miss.
The subtle but important stuff.
My favorite is, much better than arguing, is to look at my watercolor palette. That's my new mantra.
Simple but effective.
There's this other one where he's practically talking to Mother Nature about his art. He seems so connected to the natural world. It's like a personal relationship.
He's not just observing it, he's part of it.
And he talks about 5 thoughts crashing into each other. It's like a snapshot of the chaos in our minds. And maybe you're a reminder to catch those fleeting moments of insight. He's got this whole thing about how to deal with pessimists and optimists. Agree with the pessimist, throw absurdity at the optimist. It shows he gets how different people think.
He's not judging, he's just observing.
And these images that keep popping up. An open gate, a broken fence. It suggests a journey without a clear destination, but still having faith in the process.
It's about the exploration, not necessarily reaching a goal.
He also talks about revolution and evolution, and how they're connected to understanding change, both personally and in the world. which feels super relevant right now with everything changing so fast.
Yeah.
And then there's that old saying, you never miss the water until the wells run dry. A reminder to appreciate what we have.
Absolutely. And then these little observations that are like punches to the gut. Starlings on broken branches with no buds, maybe symbolizing loss. Clouds always circling their tower, always there, maybe uninvited.
Heavy stuff.
Hmm.
Then, in the middle of all his quotes, these excerpts from Brian's sketchbook appear. They're wild. Trapped fish wanting to be reborn as a shining fly. These shimmer-line tapestries made by darning needles. You see his observations, how he turns everyday things into metaphors.
Some of it is so vivid, so strange, like bleached, textured and white, to taste and sight. Pray ever avoid the lamp fate. What's he getting at there? Makes you want to figure it out.
And you get these contrasting ideas right next to each other. Canvas, rectangle, summer light, calligraphy, mystic and complete. Then bam, eater of Christians, chimera, Byzantium, warm, cold, children's chair. It's all over the place in a good way. Shows how his mind was making connections.
No boundaries. And he brings in specific places too. San Gimignano, calamari to oblivion, strange ways of magic. Then haikus about a marble island and banyan trees. It's like his surroundings are feeding his creativity.
And underneath it all, there's this exploration of death and change. References to Icarus, the guy who flew too close to the sun, sinking shells.
Heavy themes. But then he brings in something really personal. A note about his first child being born after 7 years of struggle.
Life and death, all mixed together. He mentions a strange mirror, making him look young, but then immediately throws in white magic, white lies, thoughts of twisted limbs in mind, the hidden fears seen. Like the surface and what's underneath are always fighting.
There's always more than meets the eye.
And this line, so simple but profound. This egg in brown leaves has great secret of mine, that nothing changes. Could be about the cycle of life, or maybe the core of things staying the same even though everything's changing.
It's open to interpretation, and then boom, he's back to these fantastical images. Minuscule dragons observed by Buddha spiders, a dragon that never existed. It's the power of imagination right there.
And he's always questioning. Jawless monster, cold marble sundial of the church, do the old men sleep? It's about time, death, the big questions. Then he contrasts that with simple weeds shaking in the spring wind.
New life pushing through. Even in stillness, change is coming. This one image, blue pictures pulsing. The faded image breathes once. The tattooed hand waits, is mentioned in a book review. They say it symbolizes family history, like it's etched into the skin.
Powerful. He asks this huge question. Seed pod, dragonfly, shriveled weed or living thing, stirred by wind or God? Who's in control? It brings in the mystery of the universe.
We don't always have the answers. And then there's this beautiful description. Blue bottle banquet. From the sea in summer come tide-washed necklaces. Then, purple canals, golden palazzi. The rain muffles her crying. And this nostalgic one. Along on longboat. Memory of summer walks. I hear this is gone.
So much emotion packed in there. Loss, longing, the fleeting nature of memories.
He captures it all. And then this very honest statement. The painted eye sees more than mine, and God damn it, I see nothing yet. It's like he's frustrated that he's not seeing everything, which is relatable for anyone trying to understand something complex.
We've all been there. He describes a strange device whirled by a figure of my mind. A beautiful dance. Like the creative process is always happening inside, even if we don't see it. Even a gargoyle becomes playful. Gargoyles gargling water from Gothic churches. You missed me that time.
He finds humor in unexpected places.
And this stark image. Off the shore, fragments of a memory are found. Bones of Icarus, ambition, failure, it's all there. Then, hammock facing west, fingers knit to block the sun, become burning twigs. It's visceral, you can feel it.
He's got such a strong sense of imagery, and then he reflects on nostalgia, saying that digging up old memories needs to have a point, to help us in the present. And he makes his bold statement that the artist is the only truly free person.
The ultimate individualist.
He was definitely ahead of his time with that idea of participatory art, where the audience is involved in creating the meaning. And his take on belief in art is fascinating. If I believe it's art, then it is. If I believe that I am completely happen, then I can't be convinced I'm not. It's about trusting your own judgment.
Owning your truth. He also talks about these dual concepts. Faith and doubt, discipline and freedom, communication and silence, being and non-being. They can lift us up or hold us back.
It's about finding that balance. And his definition of art and love is so fluid. Art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows. Love, art, if experienced. No description is necessary. You can't explain it, you just have to feel it.
It's beyond words.
He brings in this idea of resist and submit, perfectly balanced. Then there's the figure 4 poem, which has this cyclical structure, kind of like the I Ching. And his advice keeps circling back to letting go, being present. Don't let the demon of being right get in. Flow and think of what you are doing, not what you plan to do. Step off the train of thought.
Those are words to live by.
He critiques historians who love artistic madness only when it's in the past, safely contained. And he says we should train ourselves to be more open to new experiences, to new ways of seeing things.
To break out of our comfort zones. He makes the distinction between believing something and truly knowing it, which is like the mystic's path. And he says we need to balance intuition and logic, feeling and thinking.
The head and the heart.
He connects understanding history to creativity and awareness. And he sees cynicism as a form of destructive creativity, like losing the magic because you've overanalyzed it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to just let go and experience things. This passage called Pushing Up is really grounding. It's about hard work, willpower, the little things adding up over time. And then there's this intriguing way he describes his art practice. Draw, teach, search, reveal. It's like a cycle of creation and discovery.
Makes you think about your own creative process.
He's really passionate about getting back to a simple, intuitive way of making art. He wants artists to free themselves from the weight of art history and what critics say. He compares a critic to a legless man trying to teach running, which is pretty funny, but also spot on.
Ouch. But yeah, I get it.
He talks of the basic human need to make marks, saying it goes back further than making weapons, it's connected to the joy of being a kid. And then he says, intention forced studies quantity, not quality. Like sometimes trying too hard can backfire.
Less is more, maybe?
Wow.
He's got this playful idea that artists are leaving clues for historians to find, like little Easter eggs hidden in their work. It's this interesting back and forth between the artist and the people who try to understand them.
They need each other, in a way.
And he gives this warning. Facility is like the Midas touch. So just being technically skilled isn't enough. You need something more. He even says that the visual arts have finally become non-visual, which is a mind-blowing concept.
He's really pushing the boundaries there.
He describes Zazen as the aimless mind focusing itself, which is so Zen, right? That idea of finding focus through letting go. And he gives this great advice. Play the game as if your life depended on it. Why fear and doubt in a harmless course like drawing? Just go for it.
Don't hold back. He breaks drawing down into different types. Action experiment, slow analytic, and conceptual. Each one helps you discover different things. And he emphasizes that drawing and coming up with ideas are both nonverbal ways of communicating.
It's about expressing yourself beyond words.
Exactly. He talks about the essence of haiku. Simple idea, natural words, but it evokes a deep reaction. And he says everyone has to find their own mystic switch, their own path to understanding truth, which is always changing.
We're all on our own journeys.
He says it's important to really see things, not just look at them, to try to fail in order to succeed, and to focus on the process of creating, not just the end result. He connects the origins of writing to pictures and how the way we structure sentences can sometimes limit how we think about things.
Language can be a cage sometimes.
He says there's no one right way to draw, and he encourages people to recreate, to constantly reimagine things. He suggests doing things like drawing, reading, music when your mind's not fully engaged, letting your subconscious do the work. He calls this the Zazen mind.
Like letting your intuition take over. He also warns that we seek too hard and miss the way, and says we should resist just learning stuff in the traditional way. Instead, we should be open to failing, to relaxing, to really feeling things, to thinking differently. This all leads to his quote, "I didn't learn anything new, but I know a lot more now."
That feeling of deep understanding that goes beyond facts and information, he connects that Zen saying, "You are already Buddha," to personal awakening, and he uses mirrors as a metaphor for how we all reflect each other, which he calls magic.
We're all connected.
He talks about the jump, that intuitive leap in understanding, and how we often don't realize the fundamental things we're immersed in, like fish in water or birds in the air. He separates negative magic, using power for yourself, from positive magic, which helps you see more clearly. And he says different ways of seeing lead to different kinds of art.
It changes your whole perspective.
He describes real seeing as a complex thing, a whirlpool of relationships, and says art as the partial retention, like capturing a glimpse of something that's always moving. He wants to fool the eye, fool the mind, to play with how we perceive things.
It's about going beyond the surface.
He points out the dilemma for artists today. They need to create work that feels intimate and lasting, but the art world wants shock and novelty. Concepts sometimes take over from traditional skills, and it raises the question of whether artists have to compromise.
It's a tough balance. His take on teaching is pretty funny. The first year, I assumed. The second year, I capitulated. The third year, I'm teaching. And then he makes this observation about the ego, how it often tags along gracefully, even when we don't realize it.
It's always there, lurking in the background. Now let's get into the Bob Camblin biography. We get the basic facts. Born in 1928, studied at the Kansas City Art Institute, got a Fulbright scholarship to Italy in 1955. Pretty impressive.
It mentions his teaching career, then this big shift in 1976 when he decided to become a nomad, an artist wandering the world. And he was super productive during that time, creating a ton of work.
What's really cool for our deep dive is that the biography focuses on these personal drawings and writings from 1950 to 1974, stuff he never meant for anyone to see, so it's raw, unfiltered.
Like a window into his soul. The biography says his art goes beyond what critics can analyze. It speaks directly to you. It mentions some of the praise he got. Charlotte Moser talked about a big change in his style. Eleanor Freed highlighted his fascination with life cycles. And Texas Overview pointed out his unique way of blending drawing and watercolor.
He wasn't afraid to experiment. The biography talks about his early work in abstract expressionism, then this shift to mousses volantes in the 1970s, which was inspired by Dada and surrealism. He also did these collaborative art events with Earl Staley and Joe Tate.
He liked working with others, bouncing ideas around.
Yeah, definitely. And get this, he often signed his work anonymous, like he wanted to take himself out of the equation.
Humble, in a way. The biography explains that mousses volantes uses dots and dashes to create optical illusions. It's like he wanted the viewer to be part of creating the meaning, kind of like Escher and Dali.
Interactive art. They also mention his later series, Big Al and Descent from the Cross. Seems like he was always exploring new themes. The biography wraps up by talking about his lasting influence on artists today.
A true innovator. Now let's jump into the excerpts from Bob Camblin, Incomplete Works, Volume 1. We get a look at his early life. Born in Ponca City, Oklahoma, both his parents were artistic, so he was surrounded by art from the beginning.
The book describes Ponca City in the 30s and 40s. It mentions places like the Marland Estate and the Pioneer Woman statue, which show up in his art later on. It's cool to see how these early influences shaped him.
He was a big reader in high school, loved Emerson, the I Ching, haiku, and haiga, and you can see how that influenced his art, making it elegant and simple.
It's about capturing the essence, not overdoing it.
The book talks about his close friendship with Forrest Harrisberger. They were in the Air Force Reserve together, served in the Korean War, and they kept creating art throughout their lives.
Shared experiences, shared passions.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
His Fulbright year in Italy was a big deal for him. He was blown away by the Uffizi Gallery and the Capuchin catacombs, those creepy underground tombs with mummies.
Those images definitely stuck with him. The book gives specific examples of Botticelli paintings, The Birth of Venus and Primavera, that inspired him. And get this, he hid little details in his versions, like references to KPFT radio.
Sneaky. So before he was teaching, he was a map maker. Then the book talks about him arriving at Rice University in Houston and being super proud of his St. Bambolis series. They hint that there's some personal stuff going on behind those artworks.
Art as a way of processing life.
He had some interesting ideas about galleries and museums. He didn't like the idea of painting for money, and he thought art shows should be curated differently, focusing more on the artist's process and environment.
Behind the scenes, not just the finished product.
He kept his approach to the art world simple: have faith and work hard. He believed that obstacles can become opportunities, which he symbolized with jars of water in his paintings.
Turning negatives into positives.
In 1967, he did this Scarecrow series, inspired by Günter Grass's book, Dog Years. They represented change, renewal, transformation, and they evolved over time, becoming more mythical, with lobster shells and larvae mixed in.
Weird and wonderful.
The book explains that he added text to his later Scarecrow drawings as a way of disguising them, maybe a comment on how modern art was becoming too reliant on words. But the text could be code, a story, or just shapes, not always connected to the drawing, like a puzzle for the viewer to solve.
He wanted people to think, to participate.
The book emphasizes that he wanted his drawings to make people explore, to discover things about themselves. They've got ambiguous elements, contradictions, hidden meanings. You have to spend time with them to really get it.
It's not spoon-feeding you the answer, it's making you work for it.
His questioning of reality is linked to the surrealists, those guys who were all about the subconscious and dreams. He wanted to understand the realities that exist in our minds, beyond what we can see and touch. He also did some early social protest art, but later he combined that with non-objectivity, using symbols to show the subjective world, influenced by artists like Cremoni and those Etruscan figurines.
But the personal and the political?
Italy had a huge impact on him. He went back to focusing on drawing as its own thing, creating these large-scale pieces with deliberate corrections as part of the work.
Imperfection as perfection.
In the 60s, he did some work that combined the styles of Hugo van der Goes and Goya and this series of masks, using applied paper for shading.
Always innovating.
When he moved to Houston in the 70s, he tried to make art mystical, to go beyond just the subjective and symbolic.
To tap into something deeper.
His work in the 70s was all about life cycles, metamorphosis, the mysteries of life. He used symbols you can decode if you know Freud, de Chirico, Grunewald. And there are literary connections to Kazantzakis and Grass. But he wanted people to come up with their own interpretations, too.
It's not about being right, it's about the experience.
His work in the 80s mixed drawings and watercolors, creating these illusionistic surfaces that hinted at hidden meanings. You had to be a skilled draftsman to really see them.
It's like a reward for paying attention.
The book ends by saying that his art often has hidden images that reveal themselves over time. You go from just understanding it to truly knowing it.
It grows with you. Now let's look at the review of Zen and the Art of Enlightenment and some other quotes about Camblin. Some common threads pop up. The connection between art and philosophy, art as a way of thinking deeply, bridging the seen and the unseen, Zen and existentialism, art as a mirror to see ourselves, finding everyday enlightenment in the absurd and the impermanent, resisting easy answers, and the book itself as a tool for exploring our minds and growing spiritually.
There's a lot to unpack there.
We've got quotes from people like Pete Gershon, Giorgio Jackson Jr., Earl Staley, Penny Serling, Carolyn Farb, and the Southwestern Historical Quarterly. They talk about how enigmatic he was, the impact he had on people, his collaborative spirit, his constant questioning, his free spirit, how his art was autobiographical, and how Roland's biography captured him so well.
A complex and fascinating figure.
The review ends with Earl Staley talking about their friendship, working together, Camblin's personality, his disappearance, and how much he learned from him.
So taking a step back, after all that, it's clear that Bob Camblin was wrestling with some pretty fundamental questions. Questions about how we see the world, what it means to be human, and those are questions we all grapple with.
Exactly. And those themes that run through his art and writing, stillness, impermanence, searching for meaning, the interconnectedness of everything, they're right at the heart of Zen and the I Ching.
It's like he was urging us to slow down, to be present, to just be not always chasing after something, to move beyond waiting for Godot.
That's a powerful image.
And his art, it's full of paradoxes, it's enigmatic, it makes you think. It's like he's prompting us to question, to discover, to have those aha moments.
He wants to wake us up.
So as we finish this deep dive, here's something to think about. Where in your life are you stuck waiting for Godot? What would it mean for you to become the mountain, to be steady, to find peace in the middle of uncertainty? Maybe exploring Camblin's art or digging into the philosophies that inspired him can help you find your own answers.
Food for thought?